In this bulletin, Suva City comes to life. It's not a 30-day war, says Dr. Fong. And Ministry to enhance community surveillance.
From the studios of FBC Suva, Atera Lendua.
Suva City came to life this morning following the lifting of the lockdown, a breath of fresh air for thousands of people who stayed home for the last 4 days. After what has been described by some as a 4 long critical days of combating COVID-19, the city was bustling again with essential businesses resuming operation and many returning to work. Among them are vendors who are elated to be able to return to the market to earn an income. Many taxi drivers are also back providing services while observing COVID safety measures. We now join Koroi Tandulala live. Koroi, you spoke with some people on the streets today. What are most of them doing in the city?
Thank you, Arteva. Most of the people out here today are doing their shopping, restocking, because they exhausted their rations over the lockdown period. There's also a notable police presence within the Suva City area. Now they're going about ensuring that people lining up outside supermarkets are adhering to the physical distancing measures, and they're also ensuring that everyone else outside in public spaces are wearing face masks. Now we also notice a long line outside the Vodafone and DGCell outlet. And we spoke to a few Fijians in line, and they said they're trying to access the $90 assistance, the government assistance rather, and it has been in their account from last week, so they're finally getting a chance to come out today and access these in order for them to buy groceries and other items for their family. Now, despite the lockdown being lifted today, the Ministry of Health continued to reiterate there is a need for Fijians to continue practicing COVID-19 measures, physical distancing, and also wash their hands regularly with soap and water when they are out in public and returning home as well, because this is critical in combating COVID-19 virus. Ateva.
Vinaka Koroi. The current COVID-19 outbreak is more serious than anything Fiji has faced, and it will not be a 30-day war, warns Permanent Secretary for Health, Dr. James Fong. Yesterday marked exactly 30 days since the first case of 2021 was detected. Dr. Fong says it took the same length of time to contain last year's outbreak. However, this time around, the variant is more transmissible and the clusters are larger and more widespread.
I can sadly promise you that today will not be the last day that we announce new local cases. We may have found thousands of contacts, but it will take many more days of testing to know how many people may be positive and how our containment strategy must evolve in response.
Permanent Secretary for Health, Dr. James Fong, has clarified that a lot of lockdown measures are still in place because they're trying to sort out the 11,000 swabs that are yet to be tested. He highlighted that the ministry should have some firm answers by this weekend. Dr. Fong says a good amount of the 11,000 swabs will be sent to a private laboratory in Australia tomorrow, while others will be tested locally with the ministry's expanded capacity as they will be operating more machines. The PS also says a decision on one of the lockdown areas is expected today.
But I don't want to give any promises, so it's best that we don't identify. We just wait for us to, as we finish the swabs that are related to various lockdown areas, then we can start announcing that what further measures to take.
The Ministry of Health believes there are likely cases of community transmissions out there, and they will be enhancing the community surveillance. Permanent Secretary for Health, Dr. James Fong, says this escalation will be through mobile teams and stationary clinics. He's calling on Fijians to take the onus of containment as a society, and not just because they've been told to do so.
We have likely cases of community transmission in Fiji. That means access to screening and testing at the community level is critical. If new cases come about and future restrictions must come into place, this strengthened network of community surveillance will ensure that these measures can become more targeted.
It's been revealed that an individual moved out of a containment area and managed to travel to the Northern Division. This was confirmed by Permanent Secretary for Health Dr. James Fong when asked about an individual who presented a false positive result for COVID-19 in Mombasa. Dr. Fong was reluctant to reveal further details but did confirm that the matter is being investigated. This resulted in the temporary cordoning off of the Mombasa hospital as well as a community in the greater Mombasa area. China is willing to share the best anti-pandemic practices and send a special medical team to combat the virus in Fiji if necessary. Chinese ambassador to Fiji, Bo, says they are in the process of procuring a batch of medical supplies and personal protective equipment. China has donated 17 hospital beds worth $25,500 to aid Fiji with its current COVID-19 response. The assistance will equip the newly opened Nakasi Health Center, which is the 6th hospital-based isolation facility. Israel's airstrikes on Gaza are continuing for a 9th consecutive day, despite growing calls for a ceasefire. The death toll is rising steadily, with women and children among the worst affected. And Archers still on target. After a week break in the Gold Coast, it's back to business for the Silktails, or Kaiviti Silktails, as they continue intense training in preparation for the next round of the Ron Massey Cup. Flying Fijians Senta Semi Randrandra managed to sneak in for a try in Bristol Bears' 39-7 win over Gloucester in the Premiership Rugby. Another player with links to Fiji and former England number 8 Nathan Hughes also scored for Bristol. Here are the duo's tries. Archers are faced with yet another setback as qualifying rounds for this month looks highly unlikely. 3 rounds were scheduled for this month with points to be submitted to World Archery Oceania. World Archery will analyze the points gathered from local archers and those across Oceania and will determine who gets a spot in the Tokyo Olympic Games. President George Fong says it's a waiting game for now.
We're hoping that we're able to complete the rest as scheduled as we move forward. Obviously, it's not ideal with the restrictions in place regarding preparation and practice, but I've been through it before, and we'll try to make the most of what we can with the resources that are available.
New Zealand's Premier Netball Championship produced one of the best matches in the season after the Mainland Tactics Pip Northern Mystique 64-63 win in an extra time thriller. Mostly fine weather is prevailing over most parts of the country. There's a slight chance of isolated afternoon or evening thunderstorms in the interior parts of the larger islands. That's FBC News now. Join us again for our 1-hour major bulletin at 7 p.m. And be sure to download the FBC app to access the latest in news and sports and live radio broadcasts from any of our 6 FBC radio stations. Stay safe and good afternoon.